Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we will be discussing a magical unicorn that happened in the NFL game today. And a few other things with the Cubs and Blackhawks and such. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. So head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex.
You know, there were almost two unicorns today. Almost two.
Yeah, there was almost. And there's like what's like the inverse of a unicorn? Because I think the Eagles are about to experience that one.
Getting stabbed in the heart by a wooden stick, something like that.
Because Carson Wentz tore his ACL today.
Ooh, and they just won the Division 2.
Yeah.
Ooh, is it official? Torn ACL?
Adam Schefter is saying that Eagles officials are fearing that that's the issue.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that was a team that's looking like Super Bowl contending. I mean, they're still the best record in the NFL. And that happens? Oh boy.
Yeah. The report from the locker room was team officials, when they brought him in to evaluate him, when they walked out, they were all had their heads hanging low and were shaking their heads.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
No.
Oh man!
And Josh McCown broke his left hand.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
And Marcus Mariota hurt his knee as well.
Didn't hear about that one.
But somehow the Packers are still in second place in the division.
Well, Cleveland just needed one more stop, and in typical Cleveland fashion, they Brownsed it up, and Aaron Rodgers is going to come back, and the Packers are probably going to make the playoffs again.
Yeah. And the Browns even had LeBron James on their side. He was live tweeting during the game, and they couldn't do it for the king.
His final tweet of that game was just the slap in the face emoji, and I thought that was just the perfect way to describe it.
Yeah. Oh, well. At least we got a win here in Chicago. Well,
yeah,
not in Chicago. It was in Cincinnati, but it was a win
Chicago.
for the team. Yes. And I don't know if you want to talk Cubs or Blackhawks or Bears first, how you want to do this.
Why don't we get everything out of the way first, because I think there's a lot to talk about for this Bears game.
All right. I just kind of want to gloss over the Blackhawks right now. That was a miserable game against the Capitals, and I think we were both worried a little bit just because of their history of futility playing the Capitals. But boy, oh boy, did they not look good.
Yeah, I was at a job fair that night with the Chicago Wolves, so I didn't see it live, but I went back. I saw the replay. I saw the highlights. Ugh, wow. I mean, that second goal given up by Forsberg, that was soft. I mean, that was just ugly.
Yeah, it makes you really appreciate Corey Crawford.
big time.
And I believe that Ovechkin line, did they score 11 or have 11 points?
Something like that. I'd have to go back and look. I just know that they had a lot and we didn't. So
yeah, it was not pretty. It was just not pretty at all. For a team that really needed to come out and show something, this was not it. And granted, they won the next game against. I think Buffalo does have the worst record in the NHL, but they had to do it in overtime.
I was at that game and I kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit just from a perspective of seeing the whole thing. The Hawks got 51 shots on goal that game, but they didn't look particularly great through a lot of the game. It felt like a lot of the shots on goal were just because the Buffalo Sabres are so bad. Now, they started off the game really well, the Hawks did. They were making plays, making passes, stealing the puck away. They looked great shorthanded. I mean, they scored the shorthanded goal near the end. But boy, power play still looked bad. I mean, people were booing the power play at the United Center. It was just doing the same old crap over and over. But, there was, especially the second period, missing passes, just looking really slow. And everything the Hawks did, they took so much time to try to set something up. Like, the goalie had just the amount of time to get in place. The defenders had just the amount of time to get in block. Because instead of going, quick pass, shoot, it was pass, little bit, wind up, then shoot. Oh, there's a big rebound. The goalie on Buffalo gave up so many rebounds, no one in front of the net. It was really frustrating, despite the fact that the last few minutes of regulation and overtime was really exciting. But they still didn't look all that good, and this is a Buffalo team you got to just absolutely trounce, and they didn't.
Yeah, and it's not like it's new things that are plaguing the Blackhawks. It's the same things over and over. Lack of net front presence, not able to establish their offense, losing puck possession, not being able to have entry passes into the zone. They're just like the same things over and over and over again. And they made some roster moves and they brought Vinny Hinostroza up, but I hate to break it to you, is Vinny Hinostroza is not the savior of this team.
No, and I think people should realize that. My opinion is, no, he's not the savior, as he's not, but it's important to have him up for his sake.
For his sake, yeah, because watching him play for the Ice Hogs, it was ridiculous. He was always the best player on the team.
Absolutely. I mean, every game I saw involving the Ice Hogs, and you watch Vinny Hinostroza, I'm saying he's rotting in the AHL. He should be up in the majors right now, but luckily he finally got his chance.
Yeah, and I mean, when they sent Tanner Caro down,
yeah,
when they sent Caro down, like it was a foregone conclusion that it was going to be Hinostroza coming up, because anybody else coming up, and I think you would have heard the loudest sound ever of collective heads smashing against a brick wall because it was the wrong choice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, who else would you have brought up? Thomas Yurko? Like, that's all I could really think of.
Yeah, I mean, that would probably be the next choice. But I don't even know what else to say. Is the score still 0-0 in this game?
Yeah, I mean, again, the Hawks are getting their shots, but well,
they got their shots against they got their shots against Washington too. They outshot Washington by a decent margin. Mm-hmm. It's just they're not good shots. They're just they're easy to stop shots. I mean, there's nobody there to tip them. There's nobody there to redirect. There's no one there to occupy the sight line. They just shots.
And again, it's they take so much time to shoot it. The goalie has so much time to just get into position. I mean, the overtime goal, I was shocked that went in. I was in the 300 level on the other end, but it was unbelievable that went in. The shorthanded goal, that was a tip in. That was nice. That's what we've been waiting for. And also, I don't know if you noticed in the Buffalo game, but they missed the net a lot.
Yep.
So it's frustrating because it's like, the Blackhawks of old, they'd move quickly, and they'd risk that shot, and the goalie would have no chance. Like just a second ago, Kane had the goalie just all alone, and he just kind of waited, and by the time he shot it, goaltender was already out, taking away the angle, and made an easy save. So I just feel like they need to be a bit more quicker with all that. I know I'm not a hockey coach or an expert, but I guess that's just my observation from lately, and especially when I was at the game the other night, because when you're at the game and you're watching everything, it's much easier to kind of see things that you don't see on TV because you see it from another angle, and I think you're watching it in a different way than you are on TV. So a lot of the stuff really does stand out.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Is when you're at the game, partially it's where you're sitting kind of helps define, what you're looking at. So if you're, you said you were in the 300 sections, I usually prefer standing room only because I'm a bigger guy and I don't like being crowded up in the 300s. But wherever you're at, you've got a wide view, so you see the whole ice. If you're down in the 100 level, the action is a tighter window. But when you're watching on television, it's sort of the action is whatever the camera is catching, and you miss things on the periphery. You're focused on what the camera is telling you to focus on. So it's always a different vantage point depending on how you're watching it.
Exactly. And, another kind of interesting thing to bring up is, especially at a Hawks game, when you're surrounded by 20,000 different people, you hear people making remarks, you hear commentary, and sometimes someone will point something out, you just kind of overhear it, and you start watching for that kind of thing. So, it'd be a really interesting study to do to see what sports fans notice when they're watching on TV versus what they see in real life surrounded by different bunch of people, not just for hockey, but for every sport, really. I think it would be interesting to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, baseball's a real interesting one because it's the same shots over and over since I was a child. But when you're watching is, a lot of times between pitches, outfielders are talking to each other. They're interacting with fans. They're doing something goofy. You watch when in stadiums where you can see the bullpen, what those guys are doing. There's just so much downtime that guys occupy it with doing something.
Yeah, and I think a really interesting thing about watching baseball on TV, I think it's easier for me personally to pick up what kind of pitch is thrown right away. Sometimes it's harder to tell when you're watching in person, but when you're watching on TV from that angle and you see the movement on the pitch, I think it's easier to tell what kind of pitch it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I think you have a point. It's being at the game. Sometimes it's the people around you that are framing how you're viewing it. Sometimes it's the position of where you're sitting. There's a lot of things that factor into it. When you're watching on television, it's, you have the frame that you're given. There's not much else you can do.
Right.
So you're right. You're absolutely right. It would be so interesting to see kind of like a collection of what people watch for when they can watch whatever they want to watch, whatever view.
Exactly. And you can look at the same game and you look at two groups or multiple groups. You could say this one was watching on the couch on TV. This one was watching on TV with a bunch of people. This one was watching from the upper level of the stadium. This one from the lower. There's so many different angles and things you could look at and see, okay, who notices what? What do they have to say about this play? And did they notice what happened here? And I bet you there would be a lot of different responses.
I guarantee it. I guarantee it. I mean, football, just the angle of how you watch it changes things. Baseball, it's just so much downtime, how things work. And I mean, I think even generationally, how people look at it is got to be interesting too. Because, you think about whenever you see like an older person at a game, is the way they watch it is different than like a younger player or a younger fan.
Oh, sure.
A lot of times, especially at a Cubs game, you'll have older fans and they'll have their AM FM, radio with their Walgreens old school foam headphones. And they're keeping score, and the way they watch it is just that single camera view like they grew up with, and they're listening to the audio because they they grew up probably listening to much more radio broadcasts of it than television. So the sensory audioness is just got to be more comfortable to them. So it's a really interesting thing. There's somewhere in there there's a book or a 30 for 30 or something.
Oh, I bet there has to be. There's got to be some sort of study on this because television radio has been around for so long. You would think someone would try to observe this, but it's also interesting just because the way broadcasting is evolving, then that changes the way we watch things on TV. I mean, to your point of looking at radio versus television versus in play, you're used to the one angle. These days, you're used to watching a game on TV and you're thinking about all the replays they're going to show. So you might not be watching as sharply as it's happening because you subconsciously know there's going to be a replay with 10 different angles on it. So that's going to give you the full detail. While years ago, you'd either see one slow-mo replay or you wouldn't see much replay. So you kind of had to watch what was going on and make the observation right then and there, if that makes sense.
Well, the replay back in the day was you just watched the view you saw the first time, just in slow motion. That's what it was.
Right, exactly.
Or even...
I mean, now, how many angles do we have now?
Yeah, and then they've got like pylon cams and they've got all kinds of stuff, and you're just like... And so it's funny when you're watching, a challenge or a video review, and we've got a much better view than the referee that's under a hood because we've got big screen TVs, high definition, 75 views, where there's somebody who does this for a living is quickly editing it together to put two views together, lined up. So like, oh, his knee's down here, but here's the side view of the ball and same slice, and bringing it to like frame by frame so you can see it. Like, we have a better view.
Yeah. Which is why I think it would be interesting to see what exactly referees see under those tents. Like if they kind of release the footage and say, well, this is what the referee saw. Because I can't help but wonder, if a referee makes a bad call and they justify what they saw, wouldn't it be like a way to defend yourself by showing what you saw and what we didn't, or what we saw and what they didn't see on television versus what they saw? Like, wouldn't that kind of be a way to say, hey, this is our defense, this is all we had, instead of trying to BS your way through it? I don't know. It's just kind of something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, is because it's when you have the omniscient view, like 7 camera angles and somebody slowing it down and twisting the video and whatnot, it's easy to say, well, why did they make this bad call? But you have to think, number one, somebody made that call live as it was happening while they're in the field of play, trying not to get smashed by guys that are smash people for a living when they're wearing full pads and you're not.
Right.
They've got to make that call. And two is we don't know what view they're seeing. They might only see like 1 or 2 views on a small screen, and where they're, they don't, they might not be the ones that are saying like, oh, hold on, pause it here, freeze it here. That we don't know what they're given. So it's really easy to say, oh, how'd they make this call? And I think that's a mistake on the NFL's part, because they could easily explain this. This is what they saw. Here's the rule. Here's what we were looking for, and here's what they saw. I mean, that's why I do like NHL is they go back to Toronto, and somebody in a room with other experts in officiating go, all right, we are looking at this from every view that is available in high definition, real time, and we are isolated from pressure of fans screaming at us, players like glaring at us. We're in a booth. You don't even know who's in it. That's smart. It's just no bias involved. It's just you making the call based on all of the video evidence.
Yeah, and obviously we'll see some wrong calls still from time to time in the NHL, but I feel like for the most part, they get it right with those reviews to Toronto. Whether it's crossing the goal line or offsides, I mean, like I said, it's not always right, but I feel like it's more right of a percentage with the NHL than reviews in the NFL.
Yeah, and are they going to New York now for any NFL reviews, or are they still just under the hood?
I'm not completely sure how that works. I feel like it depends on what it is. I know, don't they go to New York for baseball, for the umpire challenges and the reviews?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Don't they go to New York for baseball?
I didn't think so. I think baseball they look under the hood only.
Because I thought they called New York and they looked at it there and they're over the headset. Because originally they didn't go with this original proposition, but they said there'd be a 5th umpire in the press box looking at it. But I'm pretty sure they go to someone with baseball, and I thought it was New York. What when a review is going underway, usually when I'm watching a game, I'm just so focused on the replay. I don't really look at what the umpires are doing, but obviously they put the headsets on review, and I'm pretty sure they're calling New York to find that out.
Okay, here's the official statement from the NFL starting this season, the season that we're in. Instead of a fixed sideline monitor, we'll bring a tablet to the referee who can review the play in consultation with our officiating headquarters in New York, which has the final decision. This should improve consistency and accuracy of decisions and help speed up the process.
Right, because before that they'd go in that little dark booth away from everyone, and everyone would anticipate them coming out.
Okay, yeah, baseball is the same way. They have a replay center in New York.
That's what I thought.
They see a tablet and they consult with them, but I don't know whose final ruling that is either.
Yeah, I mean, they keep that pretty quiet, I think. They don't want,
Silly gooses. But yeah, getting back to the Blackhawks, they're not playing well, and I don't even know where to go at this point. Everybody and their mother knows the issues. It's how do you solve them?
Yeah, exactly. The slow defense, not controlling the puck very well, not very good power play. I will say, though, their PK has been fantastic. I mean, they are more dangerous to score on the PK than they are on the power play.
Probably. The PK is good. The power play is terrible. I mean, there was that couple of game stretch where it looked really good, and you're like, all right, maybe they figured this out. And then there's like, no, that was just teasing you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just looking at the wild card standing is they they the playoffs were to start today, they wouldn't be in. It would be
How many
wild
points
cards.
out are they now?
Dallas is the final wild card, and they have 33 points. The Blackhawks have 31, and there's 2 teams between them. So they would have to leapfrog Minnesota, Vancouver, and Dallas to be in the playoffs.
Well, what can you say? They got to start winning games consistently, and they're still scoreless with the Coyotes. Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, I don't know what else to really say. I mean, right now I'm just kind of watching, seeing what happens. Just kind of ride it out, let things be determined. Like I said in the last show, the next month or so, I think is really going to put into perspective of where this team is going to be. And I don't really want to fool around much. If they're not in a position in the playoffs and nothing looks like it's improving, but they're still close to the playoffs, I think you start to pull the trigger and say, all right, let's start thinking about the future, not right now, because, I don't want to be that team that is going to try to squeak in at the very end and you pretty much know they're going to be trounced right away. Like the Red Wings the last few years, they made the playoffs. If they truly do not show any kind of mass improvement, but they're still semi-close, I think you pull the trigger and go ahead and say, look, we got to start thinking about the future. We got to make some moves for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I really agree. Because I'm glad you brought up the Red Wings as the your example, because that's a team that I was going to actually say when you started the point. My fear is the Blackhawks become the Red Wings, and dominant. Well, still making the playoffs, and still a team that you fear, but they're not going very far. Till finally they're just like, yeah, they made the playoffs. They're going to lose the first round, and that'll be it. To now they're a pretty bad team.
Yeah.
Now they're
a
pretty bad team.
The one good thing that the Hawks are probably not going to do that the Red Wings have done the past 5 years, how many big contracts did they give old washed up players, the Red Wings, over the past few years? Quite a bit.
Oh, that is their MO.
Right. And I don't think the Hawks are going to really go that route. But, they have a lot of guys locked up for a while who are getting older. So, sometimes you do revert to that Red Wings thought. But I don't think it'll be to the point where they give Mike Green a big contract, or, Brad Richards, who's, ancient. I don't think they'll quite go that route, but I mean, you know what I mean when I compare them to the Red Wings, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, that's my fear, is that they become the Red Wings. I have some friends that are Red Wings fans, and they are just miserable right now because they're so used to being in a certain position. And this team I'm not much of a gambling man, but I would put a lot of money on that they will not make the playoffs.
Yeah, one of my really good friends from college is a Red Wings fan, and yeah, he's not counting on a playoff berth this year. He knows that they're going to try to rebuild and draft some more good guys. They have some young pieces right now, but they're not anywhere near contending at the moment. Now, the thing about the Hawks that's good news for the future is, well, let's say you have to start selling a few guys. Obviously, we're going to put this to bed. We're not going to trade Kane or Taze. That's just simply not happening. But if you get a few salaries off the books, and according to reports, the salary cap is supposed to go up. So if you can get a little salary off and the salary cap goes up, then you'll have a lot more wiggle room. So I think that's something that they're really going to keep in mind.
Yeah, I just don't know how much it's going to go up. It's That's the concern is how much it's going to go up, how much room are they going to have, and what are they going to be able to do with that money.
Well, that's the other thing that is kind of confusing is where exactly do you go from here? I mean, it's not like you're going to just start, tanking. I mean, if they're not bad enough where they're going to tank, but especially if you start selling off a few pieces, you're not going to be good enough to obviously be real contenders. I mean, where they sit right now, they wouldn't be a playoff team. I mean, overall, they look pretty mediocre, but roster-wise, they would have the team to get hot and make a run. But if that doesn't happen, they're still not bad enough to be like, well, let's just play for a pick this year. That's not happening either. So your best hope is that you can trade for some picks and get some money off the books and say, well, if we have a few more picks, we could draft a few guys here and there. And, maybe we take another few years to kind of semi-rebuild here. But again, how is that going to work if Kane and Taves are going to get older? These are all the things you think about, and it's really not an easy situation to be in right now.
No, it's not. And I honestly have a feeling that Joel Quenneville is not going to be there for the next season. I think he's going to be gone.
Yeah, if this is where they finish outside of the playoffs, my guess is yeah. And there's even people talking about Stan Bowman possibly getting fired. I'm not so sure about that yet. But I could definitely see a coaching change next year if things don't get drastically better.
Yeah, they're not going to completely overhaul everything. Stan will be back next year unless he decides he's not going to be back. But Joel Quenneville, that's a different story.
Yeah, I mean, Joel Quenneville's been in his position since 2009. And, like we said in the past, coaches expire no matter how good or bad. And sometimes you need a change and you need an adjustment. And it's just part of what it is. I mean, Q's been a great coach for a long time. He had a long stint with the Blues. He eventually moved on. It's just part of how it is. And, it wouldn't be something saying, well, he failed. No, he didn't fail. He won 3 cups with us. But when it's time for something new, it's time for something new.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And Joel Quenneville will easily get another job, and he'll probably do wonders as a turnaround from a team. But it just there's an expiration date. It just happens. Sports.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yep. But let's move on to the Cubs.
Yeah.
That's I guess the biggest news is Shohei Ohtani is not going to be a Cub, even though we saw pictures of him as a child wearing a Cubs shirt. But he's going to be an Anaheim Angel of Los Angeles, of California, of whatever they are now. And I can't decide if I'm happy about that or sad about it.
Put it this way. You can be disappointed that he wasn't coming to the Cubs, but you think, A, it probably wasn't going to happen, and B, at least he's with the Angels and not someone that directly affects the Cubs' pennant chances, like the Dodgers.
The Angels are going to be terrible anyway, and they're not going to get through the Yankees even if they make the playoffs, because F the Yankees, F Derek Jeter. But did they finally give the contract number for Ohtani?
I haven't looked into it, but I think they said that it's either getting there or there. I don't know exactly what it is, but obviously it's all figured out. I don't know if they've released everything. I haven't looked ever since he went to the Angels. I kind of just turned my back to the Ohtani stuff, and I've been really focusing more on the Stanton stuff, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I got an article. Is this going to show the contract?
So I'm pretty sure they
Um,
introduced him.
Yeah, it doesn't say. But it looks like it was a $20 million posting fee.
Yes, I did hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, so who knows what the contract is? But my concern was you never know what you're going to get with an international player. It could be awesome, like Ichiro, but they could be terrible, like Fukudomi.
Or Daisuke.
Yeah. And speaking of Fukudomi, so down the street from my house, so like in the city of Chicago, there's this like sports apparel store, and there right across the street is a Dairy Queen. And my wife, daughter, and I, the end of the summer and the last waning days of warm weather, we were sitting outside eating an ice cream cone, and there's a sports store. And I'm like, you know what? I always see this place. I never stop in. I'm going to walk across the street to take a look at it. It's closed right now, but I just kind of want to peer in the window. And in the window, like you can see, it's full of Devin Hester, Rex Grossman, Fukudomi, Mark Burley jerseys.
Really?
I'm like, this has got to be a front for something, because it's like full. It's not like it's an empty store or a closed down store. It is like all set up, but it's all old players. I was like, this has got to be a front for some sort of like shady business, because like nobody is going to a store going, yeah, you know what I need is a Fukudomi jersey. And the things hanging up are sun faded, because like they don't have any of that UV block on the windows. They're sun faded jerseys. Like, whoa. And it's never open. So now like I make a point of it. Anytime I drive past, there's no hours posted. It's never open. If you go there on a Saturday afternoon or 3:00 on a Tuesday, like it's never open. And I'm like, that's so odd. Now I want to go in there and buy a Fukudomi jersey just because the store is there. Yeah.
Maybe it's like a nostalgic store or something. I don't know.
No, it's just never open. I don't know. It was Fukudomi nostalgic. Like if they had like Andre Dawson jerseys in there, I'd be like, and Sandberg, I'd be like, all right, maybe. But like Fukudomi and Rex Grossman. Oh.
Well, it's funny. It's a fun game to play when you go to a game. You do jersey spotting. See who is wearing what. I think that's funny. I saw someone at the Hawks game the other night wearing a Swerski jersey. And you can I always custom made.
Yeah, I always love it when they've got the jersey with like a real player's number, but then their last name on it. And you're like, wait, there was no Johnson on the Blackhawks that was number 53.
Yeah, right. Or
let me Google to make sure.
You know what one of my favorite Blackhawks jersey is? The Clark Griswold one.
A friend of mine and I went in and bought one for our other friends for Christmas one year. We got the Griswold jersey, and then a couple years later, I got him a Chiefs jersey with Hansen on the back, autographed by the real Hansen brothers.
Really? That is so cool.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he's got both of those now. But yeah, jersey spotting is funny when, somebody's wearing like a, Musa Muhammad jersey when you go to a Bears game.
Mm-hmm. I've seen those.
Like, you know how long ago that is? Like, I tuck them away. Like now I just like, if it's not like a superstar player that is not leaving, like it's fine. Like if you're going to wear an Urlacher jersey, that you can wear that forever, because, even when he stopped playing, you knew he was going to be a Hall of Famer and it would be okay. Like that's why now I don't go buy like a modern player unless I know they're going to stick around and be a superstar. Because I went and bought the last Bears jersey I bought was a Julius Peppers jersey.
Oh.
and I was so excited for Julius Peppers to be a Bear, and I was not going to make that same mistake twice because I almost bought a Jared Allen Bears jersey when they signed Jared Allen.
Oh,
And Jared Allen is basically the John Lackey of Beardom.
except he didn't win a championship.
Touche. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not buying a Mitch Trubisky jersey until he makes a Pro Bowl and takes the Bears to the playoffs, or I'm like, I can't do it. I'm like, if I'm gonna buy a Bears jersey, I'm gonna go buy like a Walter Payton or a Dan Hampton.
Gale
where
Sayers,
their
my
legacy-
dad's favorite.
yeah,
Gale
their-
Sayers.
I actually bought a Bronco Nagurski jersey. I'm like, that he's dead. His legacy is what it is, and is never gonna change. I'm okay. I can wear that jersey as long as I fit into it. I can wear it to a game. But like, if I buy a Tariq Cohen jersey, he could tear his ACL and never play again. And I'm stuck with that Tariq Cohen jersey.
Well, I mean, I'm stuck with a Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler Bulls jersey.
Ooh.
And you know what I
Yeah,
did
I
last
remember.
year? I taped Rondo on the back for a game.
When what was it? There was one of those things where you can buy Christmas gifts for kids that are, don't get gifts. And my wife was like, "Oh, this little boy wants a Bulls jersey." She's like, "Oh, I found a really cheap Derrick Rose one." I was like, "No. She's like, it's only like $15, and all the other ones are like $60. And I was like, "No, you're not buying this poor kid a Derrick Rose jersey and ruin his Christmas even more." And like, we will pony up. This was like a couple years ago. I was like, "We will pony up and we will get a Jimmy Butler jersey," which in retrospect sucked too, but it is what it is. Yeah, so I'm jaded as far as buying jerseys, and I saw a really nice Mitch Trubisky one. I was like, I can't do it.
I can't do it with him either. It's too early.
But yeah, we got on a tangent here. So yeah, Ohtani is an Angel, not a Cub. But the Cubs did make a starting pitching signing, signing from the Rockies, Tyler Chatwood.
Yeah, and I really wanted to talk about him because I wrote about him. I did a lot of in-depth looking on the stats, and a lot of other people have as well. People look at his raw numbers and say, "Wow, this guy sucked." Why? Well, he had
Everybody sucks in Colorado.
Exactly, and he had a 3.5 ERA on the road. He had a 58% ground ball rate. Putting that with the Cubs in field, I mean, that'll treat you pretty well when you have those defenders there. And also, the StatCast and all that stuff, they've talked with MLB experts, and MLB experts have talked about it as well, saying this guy has some of the best spin rate of any pitcher in baseball, whether it's his curve or the sink on his on his sinker and cutter or whatever. I think because he throws a regular fastball and then he throws something. It's probably a sinker or a two-seamer, but that's what you throw to get a lot of ground balls, and just his spin rate of all those pitches is some of the best. The thing that needs to be worked on is the command.
Yeah, because his walk rate per 9 is not very good. But of all available starting pitching free agents this season, he's the hardest throwing and has the best spin rate.
Exactly, and he's pitched really well at Wrigley Field in his career, so you hope that transfers over. And it's so funny because I've never seen a pitcher with those kind of stats where everyone's thinking, I like this. Not only fans, but analysts. They're like, this is good. He's got a lot of potential. He could thrive here.
Yeah, what's nice too is it just the style of pitching. It's a variety from what you're getting from the other guys. I mean, it's a stark contrast to what you're getting with Hendricks, and you can just sort of mix up the styles you're getting between your top four starters. So that's an interesting point as well. I mean, granted, he got a lot of money, but he was also like the first starting pitcher to sign, really. So the Cubs are just setting the market. Um, I, I mean, it's not the worst contract ever, but I thought it was a little high for what they were getting. But I do like the signing, and it's not my money, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. It's really hard for me. I don't like to play the pay overpay game as much because I mean, with the Cubs, they got plenty of money. And B, since quality pitching, there isn't much of it on the market, and a lot of teams are going to be going after it. It's best just to put the dollar down and get it. Because if you don't do it, then someone else is going to get them. And we all knew that going into this offseason that pitching was going to be the top priority. I'll get into the talks about Alex Cobb in a minute, but to get in there, slap the dollar bills on, say, come here, I think that's what's really important, and they did that.
I'm just wondering because they signed. I don't know. Wait, did they sign Chat? They signed him before Ohtani signed, right?
Yes, the day before.
Yeah, I wonder if they knew that was going on because I can't imagine that they would. I mean, because they're going after Alex Cobb, and they went hard after Ohtani, and they end up signing this guy. You can't have all three. I mean, I guess you could, but you don't need 6 starting pitchers. 6 front end starting pitchers. So I don't know if they wouldn't have made the signing, or if they wouldn't have gone after Alex Cobb. I don't know what that dynamic would have been, or if they knew that they were out of it before the actual signing happened.
Basically, what I think, and I don't know for sure, but I feel like it's a case of, well, we signed Chatwood, we've liked him. Now it's either Ohtani or Cobb, one or the other. If we get Ohtani, then great. If we don't, just get right back onto Cobb. And speaking of Cobb, like I said, I'm not a in-depth expert or anything, but based on what I've heard from a lot of sports writers that I follow and know, I think it'd be safe to assume that Cobb is not really a matter if, it's just a matter of when he comes to the Cubs. Again, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but personally, I think Cobb coming to the Cubs would be a pretty safe bet to make.
I mean, yeah, it's got to be good for him because it may not be the highest contract, but it's going to be comparable. A few dollars here and there is not a big deal when the kind of money that he's going to get tossed at this contract. And it's going to be a comfort thing because you are intimately familiar with the pitching coach and the manager. And that's just got to be a level of comfort that is got to be appealing. I know most people, if they start at any job, is if they don't know anybody and it's not a comfortable position, they don't perform at their best. But if you're starting at a new job and you've got a couple friends that work there and they vouch for the place, and you got somebody to have lunch with until you know the ropes, you're going to be more comfortable. You're going to do a better job, and same happens in sports. So if you're a guy that's going to pick up and move your family and move your life in free agency, why not go to a place that A is a great city, but B, it's a winning organization with people that you're comfortable with and that you have a good rapport with as your coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. And something else, I don't know if this really plays as a factor or not, but something that I thought of was if I were him, I know the Blue Jays were interested in Cobb. I'm not sure I'd want to stay in the AL East knowing how much better the Yankees just got and how good the Red Sox are. And it's like Cobb's not going to probably go back to Tampa Bay because they're not going to be able to afford him. And if you're on the Blue Jays, well, they're kind of going somewhat downward, and you have a chance to go to the Cubs, who still look like, as of right now, they're the best team in the division. So, I think that also might play into a factor as well. So I don't know what he thinks, but those are just some of my guesses.
Yeah, it's definitely all factored in there. If you're a free agent pitcher, you don't want to go anywhere near the AL East because there's two guys, the AL and the NL home run champs from last year are now going to be, back to back batting on the same team. Was that a combined 111 home runs from last year?
Yep,
just between the two of them.
Combined OPS of over 1,000.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And why would you want to do that to yourself? Just stay away. If you go to the NL where you may face them once in the season, and then if you're lucky, face them in the World Series. But yeah, it just makes sense. Just stay away from the division.
I mean, how scary is that? Stanton and Judge on that Yankee team.
I didn't even see what the Yankees gave up for him.
Starlin Castro.
That was it?
And 2 mid-level prospects. Basically, the Yankees are eating most of Stanton's salary, but it's the Yankees, so that's not really a problem for them. But yeah.
That is just bogus. That is a bogus deal.
And you know what? You know what else? The Mets are already inquiring that they're going to try to trade for Castro, so Castro might not even be a Marlin for very long.
I feel like there's just a gift to the Yankees. They're like, oh, here, Yankees. Here's for you.
It's Jeter helping out his squad.
Yeah. The only bright spot of that whole situation was that the Cardinals put in the best bid for him, and he's just like, nah, I'm not trying to be a Cardinal. Did you see the Cardinals press release about it?
Oh, yeah, I sure did. And I saw the reactions from a certain group of people, and let's just say they were not too happy with Mr. Stanton and his decision.
Oh my God. It was hilarious. And he did the same thing for the Giants, because the Giants put in apparently a good bid too. And he said no, but it was only really publicized like to a large degree by with the Cardinals. And that just makes me so happy, because screw the Cardinals.
I had thoughts about him being in our division. It's really funny though, because Stanton has actually had some really poor numbers at Wrigley Field, but if he would visit as often as he would as a Cardinal, then things could turn the tide, and then you have to face him again in St. Louis. So that was really just relief at first, and then I saw how it went down, and not only that, I thought about how pissed would you be if you're a Marlins fan. You're thinking, if he would have went there, we would at least have gotten a good return. They got nothing. I mean, you got Starlin Castro. What's that going to do for you in the long run?
Nothing. They're just dumping salary.
I mean, the Marlins never changed. New owners, same thing.
Yep. But yeah, the Cubs have a fourth starter now, just trying to get that fifth one. I think it's safe to assume that Jake Arrieta is not going to be a Cub.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Madden even said in an interview saying, yeah, it's probably not going to happen.
Watch him go to the Yankees.
Could you
Uh,
imagine? He couldn't have a beard. He couldn't do it.
But yeah, but the Cubs got a number 4 starter for now. Maybe he ends up being a 5th starter, but if we get Alex Cobb. But they also got a new bullpen arm.
Yeah, and this one, I think, I also wrote about this for Cubby's Crib. I just recently joined them, and basically the way I put it was high risk, high reward.
Yes, and I think it's safe to assume that this signing also signals the end of Wade Davis for the Cubs.
I'm not so sure about that because Morrow, he's in the situation where he's a late inning guy, but you can have him either 8 or 9. He had 3 save opportunities last year, but that's because of Kenley Jansen.
Kenley Jansen's going to go in there and get 6 out saves every day.
Right. So I'm not so sure that really spells the end yet. For me, it's a matter of his role is going to be determined by what other moves the Cubs make. So I'm not sure I'd go there yet.
Yeah, because it's the need was there because regardless of what you thought about him, Hector Rondon is gone.
Right.
And Wade Davis, Brian Dunsing, Koji Uehara are all free agents. And, not a big loss with Koji, but Wade Davis, Brian Dunsing, those would be significant losses for the Cubs if they don't re-sign them. So there's definite need of bullpen arms right now to go along with Carl Edwards, Pedro Strop, Mike Montgomery, and Justin Wilson, who we do not know what Justin Wilson will be getting next year.
I mean, that's kind of scary. I'm really praying we get the Detroit Tigers 2017 Justin Wilson because we need that really reliable lefty in the pen that goes a late inning. I mean, Mike Montgomery is either long relief or occasional late inning guy, but Justin Wilson is a solidified late inning lefty, and we need that.
Yeah, I mean, if they can bring back Wade Davis and Dunsing, and you've got Morrow and Justin Wilson that you thought you'd be getting, that's a hell of a bullpen. That's a hell of a bullpen.
Yeah, exactly. And also you might sprinkle in Sang or Maples in there to try to keep further developing them as well.
Yeah, and I forgot where I was reading it, but somebody wrote this article that I just briefly glanced at, and I emailed it to myself to read later, and I didn't read it, but they were saying that Dylan Maples could be like a huge weapon in the bullpen for the coming year.
I mean,
I'm not sure how much I agree about it, but I need to go back and read that article.
Yeah, I mean, last year we saw that he does have good stuff, but you just have to see if it translates or not. So, you got to get guys that are going to be reliable first. And Brandon Morrow is an interesting case because, I mean, it was a career year last year. Guy pitched to a 2.06 ERA, 155 FIP, sub 1 WHIP, only had like a 5.3 walk rate. It was 50 strikeouts compared to 9 walks. Command was there, threw in the upper 90s. He was averaging about 97. So he's older. He's going to be 34. So he's also had injury problems in the past. So the potential is really there. It's just, we'll see if it keeps going.
I saw that it was a 2-year deal with an option. Is it a player option or a team option? Do you know?
I know there is an option, and I know they said it was about 10, 11 million a year. I'm not sure what kind of option it is. I want to say it's a team option, but I could be wrong.
I like team options better than player options.
Oh, me too. I think with a reliever that, you have to have a team option.
Yeah, you would imagine. So now the Cubs going forward, they've You know, they've got their batting depth, you know, for their starters, fielding starters pretty much set. You know, you're not gonna fiddle with that too much. But you've also got uh, some bench depth that you need to replace. You still have another starter to go, but I think we're in good shape because winter meetings haven't even started yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. Most people were waiting on the Shea Ohtani stuff to start getting the stove going, and once that happened, we've seen some things. The Cubs are not near done with moves, like you said. Like I think that Alex Cobb is going to be the next big move. That's my prediction. There's a lot of trade rumors with the Cubs, and it gets kind of annoying because you hear about, oh, everyone on the Cubs is in interest except Rizzo and Bryant because everyone absolutely knows they're not going to trade them. But you see rumors with Schwarber, you see rumors with Baez, you see rumors with Happ, Almora, Russell. All those guys are just in countless rumors, and really all what most of it is teams just calling and saying, hey, we like this guy. What do you want for him? You know, simple stuff like that. There's not really like trades being put in place at this point for those kind of guys, and I don't think we'll really see much of that. You may see one of them get traded for something, but you know, right now I just don't see much of that happening.
Winter meetings start tomorrow, right?
I think so.
Did you know it's at the Walt Disney Swan and Dolphin Resort down in
Oh,
Florida.
that sounds nice.
Who doesn't like swans and dolphins?
In nice weather. I mean, look at the weather here in Chicago now. It's going into its old cold self again.
It could be worse. We could be in Buffalo.
Oh my God! Did you see what Adam Vinatieri did?
I didn't.
Oh, the extra point. Him and the Colts actually had to dig through the snow. They had to dig. It's so funny.
Oh, that game was ridiculous. That was absolutely that lake effect snow was no joke.
And it was so cool seeing all the photoshops online with like the walkers from Star Wars, like it's on Hoth. I think that's kind of cool the way they did that.
Yeah, I saw another one that had a Wampa monster from Star Wars.
Hey, you got to get hyped for Star Wars just a few more days.
There was another. I know. I've got Thursday night tickets.
Oh, do ya? Nice.
Yeah. I was telling some people at work that I am such like an angry person in the movie theater. Like anybody does like anything annoying, I lose. Like I can't watch the movie because I'm focused on how annoyed I am with this person, and it's all my fault. Because I let them get to me. But I was telling some people at work, I'm like, I usually go to the theater in Rosemont. It's nice, and you can pick your.
Oh
seat.
yeah, that is a nice
I'm
theater.
I'm gonna pick there's like the main thoroughfare that divides like the front section and the back section. I'm gonna pick the front row in the back section. I'm buying, the seat for me and my wife, and then the seat next to me I'm buying, and the two seats behind me I'm buying. I'm like, I don't care that it costs an arm and a leg for it. I'm like, I can't have people sitting around me. And like, if somebody tries to sit in those seats, I'm like, those are not your seats, and I will leave them empty so I don't get my chair kicked or somebody leaning in and elbowing me from my armrest. And luckily it didn't come to that. A friend of mine was like, there's 16 of us going. Do you want to come? I'm like, yes, I do. We will take over a whole section.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am. That's kind of how I am with movie theaters. I like going with friends like on a weeknight to a movie that's been out for a while, so you know it's not going to be crowded. But with Star Wars, I want to see it as soon as possible.
So I'm like, that's good. It's much better. I only have to buy one ticket. Yeah.
Exactly.
So the winter meeting starting. So you expect hot stove league to get pretty hot pretty quickly. Now that the big domino has fallen with Ohtani, you imagine that there's going to be some trades going on and bigger moves. It's going to be really interesting because I expect the Cubs to be quite active going forward.
Yeah, I mean, they said they were going to be active, and when Theo and co say they're going to be active, then they're going to be active. It's just going to be interesting to see how exactly they're going to approach this. And again, what I like is that right off the bat, they made one of the first big signings of the offseason. Even if you think it was much, it was nice that they jumped on something and they kind of established a market here. I mean, it's like I said, it's not much, but teams are going to be clawing at different people, and people are going to have plan Bs, plan Cs, plan Ds. So it's going to be a very, very interesting offseason.
Yeah, and what's one nice thing to think about is if the season had to start today, your starters would very likely be Lester, Quintana, Hendricks, Chatwood, and Montgomery. Pretty safe to say? If the season started?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd feel pretty comfortable.
You take away
that.
John Lester, the ages of your starters, 28, 28, 28, and 28.
Mm-hmm. Prime years.
Yep. You got the prime years. So, yeah, you're going to be paying Lester for the twilight years, but you expect John Lester to be able to pitch at a pretty high level for at least a couple more seasons.
And, the whole thing with last year is my kind of crazy theory about him last year, I think there was something physically wrong with Lester last year. I think he might have been playing hurt in the middle of the season because not only was he not pitching well, but when you watched him, he just didn't look right. You know what I mean?
I would agree. I don't know if there was something wrong, but he definitely just didn't look right. And, you naturally assume that it's age and miles on the arm, but it could have very easily been physical because for as little as Chris Bosio would give up when he would have his weekly call in on the score, he would say, there's a lot of hurt players that are playing every day, or, that are playing that you're never going to know about on this team right now.
And I think Lester, it's easy to maybe guess that Lester could have been one of those guys. Lester, the guy's a gamer. He's not going to give up. He's not going to stand down. That's what I love about John Lester is that he doesn't let anything get in his way. He just goes up there and does it. And he's not one to just say, oh, I don't feel great. I quit. I'm done. I mean, like Bosio said, he probably wouldn't show it.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see him come back and what he has next year and spring training. I hope one of the moves that the Cubs make is bringing back Rene Rivera.
I wrote about that too. I think that would be a great guy to bring back.
That would be a very low cost, very quality move. This is not a knock on Victor Caratini, but I like having Rene Rivera as the backup catcher to Wilson Contreras. Way better than Caratini. Plus, you're not taking away at bats from Wilson Contreras just so Victor Caratini can get playing time, and Victor Caratini needs more playing time. So I think you have to. Rene Rivera is not going to, he is what he is. And I like him. He's a solid defensive player, swings the bat fine.
Calls a great game.
But he is what he is. And he's not a player that's developing, whereas Caratini is. So I just think you can't have a developing player behind a young player. I think that's a recipe for disaster.
That's exactly what I've been saying. I think that every contending team, you need that veteran catcher like we saw David Ross be the past few years before last year. I mean, Rene Rivera, he knows the team. He knows how most of these pitchers work now. He's had a chance to work with Lester and some of the other starters. That's important. Like you said, you know what you get from him because he's been around so long. And he hit really well at the Cubs last year. You're probably not going to expect that if he comes back. He's never been known as a hitter, but it's not like he's going to be getting 500 at bats. I mean, would be playing maybe twice a week and maybe coming in late defensively. But that's just something important that I think every team needs. And he wouldn't cost more than 1.5 million, I don't think.
Yeah, and about his hitting is with catchers, a lot of times their hitting struggles because of just the fatigue on their body of catching every day. You've got a guy that's not catching every day.
Right.
He's got fresh legs. You're going to get a better at bat. And I think that's part of what you saw with Rene Rivera is he only had to play once a week, got fresh legs, and swing the bat well.
Yeah, I mean, he did a real good job last year, just overall.
Yeah, so I think that's just if they don't bring him back, I don't know who a better alternative would be to back up Wilson Contreras.
Yeah, because people will say, why carry three catchers? We've carried three catchers for how many years now? And it's worked out just fine.
Yeah, I just I think Victor Caratini is going to be a guy that's going to either be a important trade chip or is going to be on this roster, but you just don't want to take away at bats from him. I think that's important in his development.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
But yeah, I'm just really excited to see what this offseason holds for the Bears. For the Cubs. I think that Chad and Theo really want to make sure that I think there was a bad taste in their mouth from last year. Not just what happened in the playoffs, but what happened in the regular season, and just really struggling to run away with that division. And I think that they're just absolutely not content, and they saw the holes that they had that other teams don't, and they're going to really work to patch those while not handcuffing themselves for the future.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why when I think about the way they're going to approach this in the offseason, I tell myself, I know they're going to address what they need to know needs to be addressed. And, even though it may not go exactly the way we want all the time or the way the writers are saying it's going to go all the time, that they're still going to find a way to address something in some way. They know the bullpen needs work. That's one of the biggest things they talked about. They know the starting rotation need to add more depth. They know that leadoff hitter is going to be in question. I mean, they know all that stuff, and they know what they have and how important it is to everyone on the team. They know that Schwarber, even though he's had his struggles, they know what he can bring. He knows how every one of those players fits in, and I trust him to make the best decision, whether it's a signing or a trade. And, though I can have an opinion on something, it's going to be hard for me to really disagree, unless they traded Anthony Rizzo for Darwin Barney, but, that's not going to happen.
True. Do you have any predictions of what we'll see from the Cubs in the next 3 weeks?
I think they're going to get a Cobb done deal. I'm feeling pretty good about him. I think they may make another bullpen signing, and it's probably not going to be very big. It's going to be something probably a little smaller as a depth piece. Also, I think it
definitely won't be Luke Gregerson. Because I just saw isn't
he going to the Cardinals?
The Cardinals.
Yeah. Oh, whatever. And I think we may see if Dunston comes back or not. I think that they may try to bring him back. The one thing I will say about Dunston, though, is I'm in favor of bringing him back, no doubt. But I could also see him coming back and just sucking next year.
That's a real possibility.
How many times have we seen that with those kind of relievers?
Yeah, that is an absolute reality. That's something that, it's crossed my mind. Bullpens are weird. Bullpens are so hard to put together because it's a group that you could put together at the trade deadline, like the Nationals did, and be fine. You could have an abysmal bullpen and put together a good bullpen at the trade deadline. And it's not like, oh, if you suck, you have a sucky outfield, you can put together a good outfield at the trade deadline. It just doesn't happen that way. But the bullpen, you could sign guys that are just absolute studs. You're like, every spot in my bullpen is occupied by studs, and then they just all suck the next year. It's so glitchy. I don't even know what the term for it would be.
It's fickle.
Yeah, the fickle is a good term. That's just got to be something that keeps GMs up at night, just going, the hell am I going to do for a bullpen? Unless
that's the trickiest thing, I think, for a baseball GM.
yeah,
or bullpens.
Unless, Brian Cashman locked out. For how many years did he have Mariano Rivera? And like, you think about how many bullpen guys went from being great to bad, and like a sine wave. And you're like, Mariano Rivera just was solid every single day. And you're like, that guy should just put him in the Hall of Fame right now. Don't even wait.
Yeah, Mariano Rivera was a freak of nature that you're not going to see very often. You know what a great example of this kind of talk is? Look at the 2015 Cubs bullpen and look at the guys in there and look at where they are now for the most part. Look at Hector Rondon. Look at Justin Grimm. Look at Clayton Richard. Look at, what's that guy that was on the Braves before? He made some spot starts. He threw a splitter. Shoot, why am I blanking on his name?
Jason Mott?
No, but he's another example. Trevor Cahill.
Trevor Cahill. Yeah, you're right.
And they had, remember like the past month or so, they had Fernando Rodney, old man Fernando Rodney. Well. Yeah, he is. And you had your Travis Wood, but you had heroic saves and heroic holds and just heroic scoreless innings from guys now who are either struggling, not playing anymore, or just kind of bouncing from team to team.
Didn't that team
look at how good
Wada.
Yes, they had Sayoshi Wada.
God, who else was on? Neil Ramirez.
Oh, dude, remember 2014? He was a beast. He was so good. And since then, I think he's been with like 7 different organizations.
Yeah. Fernando Rodney. Jeez. Yeah.
Do you remember Clayton Richard coming up big in the Cardinals series several times?
That pitching, that pitching unit for the starters had Dan Herron.
Yeah.
Dan Herron.
Everyone else was, obviously you had Cy Young Arrieta, you had John Lester, you had Kyle Hendricks and Jason Hamill. But yeah, I remember Dan Herron because for a while that season, you saw Sayoshi Wada get starts. You saw, he was kind of the 5th starter through a lot of 2014, I remember. But, it's funny how those types of guys, they could be plugged in randomly one year and do really well. But 2016, Clayton Richard was awful. He got DFA'd. Fernando Rodney left. Neil Ramirez, like I said, he's bounced around and hasn't really gotten back. Sayoshi Wada's long gone. Trevor Cahill's gone, but he did some good things in 2016. He was kind of up and down, but Oh, was he on the 2015
Yeah.
team? That's right, he was. They got him back. That's right. Oh my
Edwin Jackson.
gosh. I forgot.
Uh,
Remember 2013 when Christian Villanueva was a really good starter for like the first month or so with the Cubs, and then you had Scott Feldman who would get us Jake Arrieta, and it's just funny how that works. Pitching is such a difficult thing to tackle because you have your greats, and when you think about it, you look at all the pitchers in baseball. The greats make up such a little percent. You have such a little percent of the Kershaws, Bumgarners, Sales, Lesters. That makes up just a microscopic bit of all the pitchers that are in baseball, and they can go from being great one season to absolute turd the next season. It's amazing.
I pulled up the stats from the 2015 season, and there's a bunch of guys I don't remember pitching. Tommy Hunter.
Oh, we got him from that was Junior Lake. We traded Junior Lake
Phil
for him.
Koch.
You mean Phil Choke?
Yorvis Medina.
Okay, I don't remember him.
He pitched 9 innings. Gonzalez German.
I remember
Brian
Brian
Schlitter.
Do you not remember Brian
Not
Schlitter?
from that season.
Don't you remember when he was DFA'd early and everyone called him Brian Shitter?
That's right.
I was at the last Cubs appearance he ever made, actually.
Don Roach.
Don Roach?
Yep. He pitched.
Don Roach.
He actually got a start.
Don Roach? When was that?
I'm just looking at the stats.
Look, I remember all sorts of obscure Cubs, but I do not remember Don Roach. I remember Seth Frankoff, but I don't remember Don Roach.
Get a 10.8 ERA, 3.1 innings pitched. ended up with a wait, I'm looking across here. 3.43 FIP, a 2.7 WHIP, 21.6 hits per 9, 2.7 walks per 9. Yeah, I don't remember. If Baseball Reference, it's either telling the truth or, they try to sneak one by us. Don Roach. Was he?
I said, I can remember.
Was he the guy that started like the last game before the All-Star game?
Who was that against?
I don't remember.
You said this was 2015,
Yeah.
right?
And I think they got rid of him like the next day.
I'm going to go and look up every game on the baseball season, so let's figure this out.
Don Roach, Cubs. Let's see. Hold on. He's got a Wikipedia entry. The Cubs promoted Roach to the majors in June. He allowed 8 hits and 4 runs in 3 1/3 innings in his Cubs debut on June 27 as a starter in a loss to the Cardinals. And he was waived in July.
I remember this now. Yeah. This is all coming back to me because I'm like, wait a minute. Was it against the Cardinals? It was up from AAA. Because I think, was somebody injured?
Wasn't it Lester?
It might have been. Because I don't think it was Arrieta. Unless it was like a Hendricks or a Hamill. Maybe, I don't know. Because, yeah, here's his game log. June 27th, 2015, 8-1 loss to St. Louis.
Yeah, he currently plays in the Korea Baseball Championship League.
Well, at least he's still pitching.
Doing something.
We dedicate this episode to Don Roach.
I'm tipping some out to my homie in Korea.
Here's to you, former Cubs great Don Roach.
I'm totally going to show up to a Cubs game in a Don Roach jersey. Christmas list is adjusted.
Dear Santa, give me a Don Roach jersey. What do you want for Christmas, little boy?
I'm going to go in the mall Santa and be like, he's like, aren't you a little big? Shut up. I need a Don Roach jersey.
You know, it would be so fun to just get a bunch of jerseys of obscure Cubs players. My one friend, two of my friends from college actually, would always try to buy me a Justin Berg Cubs jersey. Do you remember Justin Berg?
No, I don't.
He was a pitcher that pitched a few games in 2011, and he threw 12 or 13 straight balls in his last big league appearance.
That's not a good number.
No, but my friends would always bring up Justin Berg for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, that way trumps. I was in New York, and I don't know why they were selling it in New York, but it was the old like 80s Cubs jersey that's like baby blue with the pinstripes. And it was a Vance Law jersey. I'm like, I need to own this.
Vance Law.
Like, I need to own this. And I was like, but they only had a size that was too small. And I was like, crap. Like, do you have another one? And they're like, do we have another Vance Law jersey? No. We don't know why we have this one. It was so bummed. Like part of me just wanted to like buy it and then use it as motivation to work out. And I was like, but I'm not fitting into a size medium Vance Law jersey.
That's great. That is just great. I actually saw one person one time at a game, and I think, what was he wearing? Oh, do you remember Marcos Mateo? He was a reliever a few years ago. Well, he was wearing a Marcos Mateo shirt, and I thought, well, either he's going for the obscure or he's a friend or family member of him. I don't know. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, all coming full circle here. But yeah, so the winter meetings are upon us down in Florida. I think there's just going to be a lot of action. I think you're going to see a ton of action, not just with the Cubs. I think the Stanton trade to the Yankees is going to send shockwaves to the rest of baseball because everybody's going to overreact. Because they're going to think, crap, we thought we had enough, but now we got to face a team that almost made it to the World Series without Giancarlo Stanton. And now they've added his 59 home runs or whatever.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where since the free agent market isn't huge, I mean, people are really going to go at it with the trades.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely. You're going to see some big moves. I mean, I'm hearing rumors that the Red Sox are trying hard to trade for Kyle Schwarber.
I heard that too.
I don't see it happening, but if the Cubs did, would it be the worst thing?
Depends on the return.
I mean, assuming that Theo's not going to get, fleeced in a trade.
I mean, if we had the chance to get Andrew Benintendi, I mean, obviously that would be stupid of Boston, but if somehow, some way it was Andrew Benintendi, I'd say hell yes to that trade.
Well, yeah, they're not doing that. That
Right.
just doesn't make any sense.
I don't think anything's going to really come of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I just, I'm just looking at their pipeline, and I don't know. Nobody that really just jumps out at me.
The Red Sox
Yeah.
farm system. Well, you remember a lot of them went in the sale trade.
Yeah, they're all White Sox now, so it's
Does no good.
it's not helping us now. So I'm just trying to think of like what they could even, give the Cubs. I'm seeing the new rankings. Eloy Jimenez is the number 5 in ranking, and
As much as an important trade that was, part of me is going to be a little bitter seeing him just destroyed on the White Sox, but
it's
well.
even worse than Eloy Jimenez being the number 5 player in the.
What's that?
Is Gleyber Torres is number 2.
Yeah, but at least we got a World Series out of that. But yeah, Gleyber Torres is quite a stud.
Yeah, I'm looking at the top guys here, and I'm not seeing any Reds. Finally, number 43, Jay Groom, left-handed pitcher, the number 43 ranked minor league player. That's their top guy.
Yeah, it to me, I can't see Boston giving up any of their big league talent for Schwarber at this point. Whether it's a Jackie Bradley or Mookie Betts or something like that, it's not realistic. So, I don't see any way they'd agree on a trade on this one. I mean, Trader Dave Dombrowski is known for making big trades, but that usually involves giving away prospects for MLB players, and it's not like the Cubs are looking to trade for prospects. They're trying to trade for things that are going to help them win because they're in the window of contention.
Yeah, the trade just doesn't match up. So the Cubs are not doing that one.
Yeah, so meh.
Yeah, that's a pipe dream. But should we move on over to this Bears game?
Yeah, rare victory Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, not just a victory. They smashed the Bengals.
Yeah, 33-7.
Yeah.
Quite a drumming. When's the last time we've blown out an opponent by that much?
I don't even know.
I couldn't tell
I
you.
mean, not in the Fox era.
No.
But
because I think technically the biggest blowout was against San Fran last year, and that was not by this margin.
Yeah. I mean, I loved watching it. It was a lot of fun to watch. And the thing is, like, I always throw this out there, is when you're losing, the other team is basically pounding on you. And that's when you see a lot of injuries, because they're imposing their will on you. But when you're the one that's controlling the action, it's less risk of an injury. And, you saw the Bears come out of there pretty healthy. But, the big thing with this is I don't know how much of this victory was the Bears winning versus the Bengals just mailing it in. I think there's some sort
I think
of
it's a combination of both.
Yeah, I think there might be. And my concern is because we haven't won in a long time, the Bears fans and the front office and everybody involved with the team is going to think, oh, well, we're on the right track now. When I think this could be a false flag here.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, they're still 4-9. They're still, obviously not a playoff team again. But I think there are a lot of things where you can look and say, well, the Bengals are pretty bad, but I think there are some legit things you can look at from the Bears that we liked. For example, the way they used Jordan Howard, they used him the way they're supposed to. And I was thinking this the whole time watching this game. If they would have used Jordan Howard the way they did this game last week against the 49ers, the Bears probably win that game. So they used him well. He scored the 2 touchdowns, 147 yards. I thought Trubisky looked really good today. I thought he made some really good throws, and you saw some really nice catches from Kendall Wright. I thought that was something to be happy about, regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah, I liked the way Trubisky played, and this is still with a Bears bad offensive line. You saw them give him the opportunities, and there was one that really stuck out, and he was rolling to the right, and you had a back rolling out on the flat, just a couple of yards beyond the line of scrimmage, and he bypassed that safe pass because he was being chased. I don't think that was the design of it, but there was a little more pressure than they expected, and he threw to the tight end. That was like the next level up, and ended up going from 3 or 4 yard gain to like an 8, 9, 10 yard gain, just by the read progression and the throw while rolling to the right. And I was like, that is something that we can hang our hats on. That's the thing we want to
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We saw no interceptions, no interceptions. That's a positive.
I mean, it was so nice just seeing a spread out of different plays. You saw some throwing downfield, you saw some checkdowns, you saw some good running plays. You used Shaheen, 4 catches, 44 yards. You used Kendall Wright, 10 catches, 107 yards, led the team with catches. You saw a nice throw to Josh Bellamy. He had 52 total yards. Cohen had 80 yards. Like I said, Howard did all this stuff. You saw things being spread out more, and I thought, why haven't you been doing this sooner? Why did it take you this long to do this sooner, even though you played other bad teams before this? There was no excuse not to do it then, so why did you wait until now to do it? And look, I know, the Bengals are banged up as heck. They let a bunch of holes open for Howard to run through. I mean, there's a big part that's on them for just failing to defend. But the Bears actually spread things out and took advantage of that kind of thing. And look, the coaching staff, we want it to be gone. It should be gone. It will be gone after this. So it's both nice to see it and frustrating because you're like, where has this been?
It's been stifled by John Fox. John Fox's conservative play calling was not going to allow this to happen. And I don't know where the decision came from, but you saw better play calling. I mean, I know there was some talks of maybe Jordan Howard was injured, and that's why you saw him not running up the middle, but that shoulder looked fine today. You saw Trubisky be able to throw and move the ball down the field to throwing to Kendall Wright and Josh Bellamy. And keep this in mind too, is as bad as the Bears receiving core is, their best wide receiver is Dontrell Inman, and he didn't get a target today.
Yeah, that was something I was going to bring up. That was one thing that kind of surprised me a bit. Unless they just thought, hey, Kendall Wright's the hot hand right now, keep going to him and let Shaheen and Howard do their things, or that was the one thing I was a little confused about.
Yeah, I didn't even notice it until towards the end of the game, and I'm like, you know what? Did he even play? Was he injured? And I didn't know. And I pulled up some stats. And I'm like, no, he played. Just didn't get a target. And
it really didn't cross my mind until I looked at the stat sheet because they were doing all this stuff on offense. I just didn't think of it.
Yeah, and am I concerned about it? No, because if he doesn't come back next year, the Bears can still have the Bears can put together a good receiving core without a Dontrell Inman. You could add him to it and add him as quality number 4. But I just, if they don't build rapport with that guy, okay. Seeing Trubisky build rapport throwing to Adam Shaheen, that's what I like to see. That's important to me.
Exactly. Like, if you gave me the choice of saying, would you rather see Trubisky try to have Dontrell Inman have the big day or Adam Shaheen, 10 times out of 10, you say Adam Shaheen.
Yeah, you're like your rookie quarterback throwing to your rookie tight end and building rapport there. Yes, that's what I want to see.
I mean, it was a beautiful touchdown by the two today.
Yeah, I mean, you saw what the potential was for Shaheen. They didn't have a matchup for him. The guy had good coverage, but Shaheen ran well and caught well and, was too big. It was too big.
Right. And that's what we said. Baby Gronk, the guy that's big, the guy that's going to, help Trubisky develop with his size, the guy who's going to be there downfield and short passes, the guy that's going to be really part of the offensive core in terms of throwing targets. We know we have Jordan Howard as a guy for the future, but when it comes to throwing targets, Adam Shaheen is the main guy right now because you're going to build this receiver core next year. You're going to get more guys. But Shaheen is going to be there. So he is, in my opinion, the most important throwing target outside, Cohen is obviously important, but Shaheen is the important guy downfield, I think, considering where the Bears are and where they're going to be in the future. And that's a chemistry you want to build right now. And I feel like for so long this season, not seeing Shaheen has only hurt that development. We've said it week after week. But seeing what he did today, even if it was for just 4 catches, those are some good things. Trubisky threw the ball right where it needed to be. Shaheen made the catch as it needed to be. That's what you want to see.
Yeah, and we've lambasted Brian Pace quite a bit in the last several weeks, and for the most part, rightfully so. But suddenly you're going, I'm starting to see what his vision was. So when we all were like, we need an impact player in the first round. All right, so we traded up for our future quarterback. You're like, okay, I can buy into that one because we need a quarterback going forward. But our second round, we got to go with an impact player. And we go with a guy from a college nobody's ever heard of. And
D2.
And you're like, okay. And then they draft Tariq Cohen, and you're like, I scout a lot of players, and I never even heard of Adam Shaheen.
Hey, I haven't heard of him either.
And I couldn't even find game film. But Tariq Cohen, at least I'd seen him in highlights, and you're like, oh, this is a gimmicky guy. But he comes in, and he's legit. And they have Jackson, and I didn't love him on film, and I watched him play, and he gets better and better and better every week. And you pair him, right now you're pairing him with scrub players, and he's still making plays. When you pair him with somebody competent, either there's going to be some really phenomenal safeties in the draft where the Bears are drafting that are probably going to be available because there's going to be probably 4 high first round draft pick quarterbacks. So you pair him with a top flight safety, you're going to have a hell of a safety combo. So you're just starting to see where these guys are falling in, and you're like, all right, now that I'm starting to see this potential, maybe his drafts aren't so bad. I mean, Kevin White, you can't, like we said, is if it's knee injuries or soft tissue injuries that happen. You're like, all right, shame on you for not knowing about these. But when every injury is a broken bone, you're like, you can't predict a broken bone. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one thing that I keep saying is Pace clearly is drafting these guys for a reason, but the coaching staff has been handcuffing and holding back this vision that he has. So my question is, why hasn't that been taken care of? If the front office sees this and if ownership sees this, why don't they do something about it? That is been the thing with me all season is you clearly see the way the coaching staff is holding back Trubisky, how he's holding back Adam Shaheen, how he's holding back Tariq Cohen for all those games. So why isn't the Bears hierarchy doing something if your vision is being held back and you want to see it? Why stay status quo? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, and you start to look at Ryan Pace's draft history. So, his first pick, Kevin White, you don't know what you have. It's probably not good because he never can play on the field. But his second pick, Eddie Goldman, great pick, especially since if you remember the 2015 draft, is I would say 2/3 of Bears fans were clamoring that the Bears absolutely had to draft Danny Shelton.
Yes.
And I was like, no, you don't want Danny Shelton. I was like, if you want that position, I was like, wait till the second round and go with Eddie Goldman. And they did. And I was like, all right. Like, it's one of those things you can say on a show, but now that your team actually did it, this is a boomer bust to make you look like a turd if you're wrong. But I was like, I'm very glad Eddie Goldman has worked out. But then Hronis Grasu, not looking like a good pick. Jeremy Langford, not looking like a good pick. But then the fifth round, you get Adrian Amos, who is, if nothing else, has been very, very useful. And then you draft Teo Fabaluje, who stunk on ice. But you brought in as free agent rookies Jonathan Anderson, who played very well for a couple years. Bryce Callahan.
I like Bryce Callahan.
Cam Meredith, undrafted. John Timu. Harold Jones-Corte. So your undrafted rookie class was pretty phenomenal. And then your 2016 picks, Leonard Floyd looking good. Cody Whitehair looking good. Jonathan Bullard, we don't know. We'll see. He looked all right today. Nick Kwiatkowski has looked good when he plays, but had some injuries. Deion Bush played today, looked pretty good. DeAndre Hall, incomplete. Got moved to a position and hasn't really played. Jordan Howard, great pick.
Thumbs up. Great thumbs up.
But then, so last year you got Mitch Trubisky, who's looking better and better every time. You've got Adam Shaheen. You're starting to see the potential there. Tariq Cohen, Jackson. You're starting to see he's hitting on a lot more picks than he's missing. And I once did an analysis where I took, two of the teams that are regarded as some of the best drafting teams, the Packers and the Patriots. And I went through picks for like 12 or 15 years, every pick they had, and gave them a scoring system and did it versus the Bears. And I found that those teams don't hit more often than the Bears by a statistical significance, but where they separate themselves from the other teams is they average way more picks per year than a lot of other teams. So it's that they're not hitting any more often. They just are having more bites at the apple to get hits. So if you're getting, hitting on X percent, the more picks you have, the more likely you are to get a player. And that's where those teams have excelled. Whereas the Bears have been towards the bottom half of the league in number of picks every year because they make trades.
Yeah, I mean that's a great way of putting it. That really is. You can obviously it's really just a game of chances. You can have like 15 cards in front of you, and you have to pick like 5 of the best ones, and you can have a bunch of other cards, and you have to pick a few of them. I mean, there's so many different chances that are taken in the draft, whether it's, well, this is plan B because we had plan A, we have to go with plan C, but there's all these options here. The more picks you have, you can say, well, you can kind of execute plan B, plan C, and plan D, and if one of them works out, great. But if you only have a few picks, it's like, well, it's either this one or this one. So, that's a big factor.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's all about the number of picks. And I was, part of me, the beauty of if the Bears would have lost out for the season would have been a really high draft pick in a year where there's quarterbacks and you already have one. You can use that to trade back, still get the defensive player, or, who knows what they'll pick, get the player you want and accumulate draft picks. But with today's win, the Bears would now be drafting 7th in if the draft were to happen today.
Isn't that where they picked in 2014? Was that 7th when they picked Kevin White?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Kevin White pick. And the pick before it, if they would have gotten 6th, was what's his name? The defensive lineman from the Jets. Oh my God.
I know what you're talking about.
Wow, why am I drawing a blank? Quickly looking this up is Leonard Williams.
Leonard Williams.
And he played very well for the Jets. You would have liked to have that one.
For sure.
Yeah. Or, if they could have drafted Vic Beasley, who was drafted next. He's worked out all right.
Yeah, I'll say.
Or Todd Gurley.
Okay, now you're just depressing me.
Yeah. Marcus Peters. Well, as good of a player he is, he's nuts.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw.
I was going to say.
That last week is when he took the flag, threw it in the stands, and kicked himself out of the game and came back with no shoes. He's a nut job, but he's a good football player.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so this game had a lot of good things, but still so many penalties. Many penalties.
10 penalties, 74 penalty yards. It took away a touchdown. That was frustrating, especially early on.
If you take the last 2 Bears games, Tariq Cohen has had a 15-yard touchdown reception, a 67-yard punt return, and a 25-yard reception, all erased by penalties.
Yeah, that's just bad luck for him. And remember, in that win against the Steelers, his initial overtime touchdown was overturned.
Yeah. I felt like this game was just so penalty filled. And it was a quick stat is, if you were to take, before this game started, the teams with that run the least amount of offensive plays in a game, the Bears were second to last and the Bengals are last. So you sort of expected this to be a dud game. But the Bears came out and played hard. Well, the Bengals just laid down. They had some barely any life left for playoff berth, but they had some, and they just laid down.
That's gone. Yeah, their playoff chances are done.
Some other notes here. Tom Compton came in playing for Kyle Long and held his own against Geno Atkins. That was a positive.
Surprising, but positive, yeah.
Jordan Howard can't catch worth a lick.
Nope.
That very first drive, Kyle Fuller should have had an interception. And if not, that should have been offensive pass interference on AJ Green. You can't hold the guy's arm down while he's trying to make an interception. That's a penalty. And I don't know how that was missed. Probably because it's AJ Green and the league loves him. That what should have been a touchdown in that first drive by Tariq Cohen. And you're like, oh man, that should have been a touchdown. And then Jordan Howard comes back and is like, nah, son, this is my touchdown. Mike Nugent in our long line of terrible kickers. And it's funny to talk about is, for so many years we had Robbie Gould and he was just, automatic. And then you saw slipping and slipping and slipping, and you added in how much money he was making and what an outspoken pain in the ass he is on a bad team. When you're outspoken and a pain in the ass and it's a good team, you go, okay, whatever. Especially when you have strong players, strong personalities like Brian Urlacher and Lance Briggs, and you just sort of you take it with a grain of salt. But when you're on a bad team and he's making a lot of money and he's not hitting his kicks and he's outspoken, you go, adios. And it was the right decision to make. And Robbie Gould, although he's still bitter about it, he admitted as much, is if he realized that he needed to go out and work harder because he was out of the league for from half of a season. It was motivation for him. So did the Bears, people like, oh, why'd the Bears ever get rid of Robbie Gould? Is you seem to miss like 2.5 seasons of him not playing very well.
That's what I've been saying to people over and over and over again. He was really struggling at the end. He was making a lot of money at the end. I defend the Bears every time someone brings that up for getting rid of Robbie Gould.
Yeah, they didn't cut the Robbie that you saw last week. They cut the Robbie that was, missing a bunch of kicks. It was a different Robbie, and that's the Robbie.
And look,
most
Bears fans who are saying, why did we cut him? We're trying to run him out of town when he missed after that 49ers game in 2015.
Yeah, absolutely. So what else with this? This was the first game all season that the Bears scored a touchdown in their opening drive.
First one, at least they didn't go all season without doing it.
Yeah, and then you had another sweet challenge by John Fox. Not the one he actually won.
I was going to say which one.
The other one was a good one.
It was.
I was surprised. I thought he wasn't going to call it. I was like, because this is a good challenge. John Fox is probably going to bungle it, but he didn't. But the first one was just like, why? Why did you do that? Like it's his throwing the challenge flag is a microcosm of what's wrong with John Fox. Let's see. A lot of dumb penalties, including that Tom Compton block in the back on a touchdown.
Yeah, that was bad.
That was just unnecessary. You're a veteran player. Why did you do that? That was terrible.
You know what's really funny actually about that? I missed the first half due to a family matter, and we were sitting around eating, and we saw on Twitter that the touchdown was called back, and my brother and one of his in-laws said, I bet it was Tom Compton. And then we're like, it actually is. And they're like, well, of course.
He's a really good football player, but he just makes some boneheaded plays.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, but going forward, so the Bears had a nice game. It was definitely, they definitely wouldn't have beat. If they would have played like this against the Eagles, it's not like they would have won that game. But
No.
against the Bengals, yeah, this is going to get you a big margin victory because the Bengals shot themselves they turned into the Bengals. They really did. But
Well, I think that loss against the Steelers just completely deflated them.
oh yeah, it had to. It really had to. And that's what you saw. But the Bears showed some life. You saw some. This is the game that if there was any possibility of Ryan Pace getting fired, I think this is the saving grace. Not the saving grace for John Fox, but the saving grace for Ryan Pace if it was needed. Because
I've heard other people say that too.
You're starting to see the vision that he has. And now you're like, all right, well, what could we do if we had an offensive-minded head coach?
Yeah, exactly. And you see what spreading the ball around does, even though it was against a bad team, but you see what some of these guys can potentially do. That's important.
Yeah. And so I it sucks to see Vic Fangio is going to be cast off, but you're really excited to see him bring in a young, offensive-minded head coach and what kind of things they can do with Mitch Trubisky, because you saw what he's capable of: moving the pocket, throwing on the run, being able to scramble when there's open real estate in front of him, utilizing that where, he ended up crossing the line of scrimmage when he made a throw, but he had that defense on their heels when he went to run and pulled up and threw. He had the defense on their heels. And that's like a Aaron Rodgers type thing where you go scrambling and everybody's thinking run to stop the run. And he makes passes, before he crosses that line of scrimmage. And that is a dangerous weapon. You add a couple pieces on that offensive line and rebuild that wide receiver core, and you might make a big turnaround in the offense.
Absolutely.
So I mean, this is the game why you wonder why John Fox wasn't fired earlier. You leave the rest of the coaching staff in place, and you let Vic Fangio do what he wants to do on defense, and you let Dowell Loggins do what he wants to do with the offense, and you just all the handcuffs are taken off by John Fox, and I don't know if John Fox just took the handcuffs off himself, knowing that he's going to be gone, or what happened, but you saw semblances of an NFL caliber offense.
An imposter. I think it was an imposter.
I love the picture that you posted of representation of John Fox. But yeah, so I don't really have much else to say. There was a lot of good takeaway from this game. The victory was great. There's a lot of good things you saw with the run game. Trubisky, Shaheen, Kendall Wright. Maybe Kendall Wright has a spot on this team going forward once they rebuild a wide receiver core. But there's a lot of things that you need to improve upon as well. The pass protection, the cleaning up penalties, bringing in more edge rushers, because there was absolutely no semblance of pressure on the ginger hair. They had no pressure at all. So you need to bring in edge rushers. So it highlighted the positives of what you have going forward and the things you definitely need to improve on.
Absolutely. That's I think that's a good way to take away from this game. And it was just nice to see things clicking throughout the entire game. I really liked the pickoff that Eddie Jackson had, batted in the air, stayed with it, picked it off. Really liked seeing that. Yeah, I mean, though there were some things that still need work, especially with the penalties, it was nice to see things being utilized the way we've wanted them to. And I know it sounds like a broken record after a Bears win, but hopefully that makes some progress with things here. Completely kind of unrelated with that. Did you notice how empty the stadium was
I did.
in Cincinnati?
I can
I
imagine.
mean, that was really empty.
Yeah, I mean, you have to expect that as you know your team's going to be out of it. They're facing the Bears. Not surprising. You'll probably see that in a couple weeks when Cleveland comes to town.
Oh, it's going to be very empty. I know my friend has tickets to it, so. But yeah, it's going to be really empty, and I was still impressed. There were a lot of Bears fans there.
Yeah, I mean, Bears fans travel well because you think about the Chicagoans move other places, and that's their one chance to see it. I know. I never went to an Eagles game where the Bears were there, but whenever the Cubs would come to town or the Blackhawks would come to town, I'd be there in my garb and take the abuse by the Philadelphia fans.
Yeah, you have guts to put up with Philly fans like that. You have guts.
But I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Do you have anything else you want to add, Alex?
No, I'm just ready for another week of hot stove action. I think you're going to see things turn up this week now that the Shohei Ohtani stuff is over with. So enjoy that. And yeah, pretty much what I got.
All right. Well, thanks everyone so much for listening. Please make sure you hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. Hit us up on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swerski Sports on Twitter, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on the plains. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing